You may have saved carefully for retirement. You may have paid off debt, built investments, and imagined a future with more freedom and less pressure. But the retirement most people picture usually looks like their 60s or early 70s. It looks like travel, hobbies, time with people you care about, and the relief of finally using what you spent decades building. What it rarely looks like is life after 80, and that is where a quiet problem can begin. The greatest risk in retirement is not always that you will live longer than your money. Sometimes it is that you will reach 80 with a financial plan designed for the life you had at 65. A plan can look strong on paper and still become fragile when energy changes. Driving becomes harder, the house becomes more demanding, or independence requires more support. This is not about predicting illness or assuming old age will be miserable. It is about recognizing that retirement is not one unchanging chapter. The more flexible your plan is, the more freedom you may keep as life changes. Imagine a couple retiring at 66. Their mortgage is paid off. They have savings. Their expenses are manageable. They live in a home they love and are healthy enough to drive, cook, travel, handle repairs, and manage their own schedule. For the first decade, the plan works beautifully. By their late 70s, little appears to have changed financially. But daily life has started to shift. Driving at night feels less comfortable. The stairs require more attention. Yard work is no longer simple. One person begins carrying more of the household responsibilities because the other has less energy. They are not in crisis. But the plan that supported independence now depends on at least one of them driving, someone maintaining the house, and both continuing the unpaid work they perform for themselves and each other. For someone living alone, that fragility can appear even earlier. There may be no automatic second driver, no one at home to divide tasks, notice gradual changes, or help think through a difficult decision. A single person may manage perfectly well for years, but when one ability changes, there is no built-in backup. That does not mean living alone leads to a worse retirement. Many people age independently with strong friendships, community ties, professional support, and intentional routines. Whether someone is married, single, divorced, widowed, or living far from family, the same question remains. How much of the current plan depends on abilities, relationships, or informal help that may change? That is the part many retirement plans miss. They calculate how long the money may last, but they do not always ask how long the current version of life will continue to work. Retirement is often treated as a finish line. Work, save, reach a number, leave the job. But it can last for decades, and the beginning may look very different from the later stages. The early years may include travel, projects, volunteering, and more choice. Later, life may become quieter, not automatically worse, simply structured differently. You may travel less but spend more on convenience, buy fewer things but pay more for help, or stop maintaining a car but need reliable transportation. You may spend less on entertainment but more on living closer to services or people you trust. The total may not rise in a straight line. The nature of spending changes, making a plan based only on today's budget misleading. This is one reason intelligent, responsible people can be caught off guard. When we picture ourselves at 85, we often imagine a slightly older version of who we are now, with the same house, routines, relationships, independence, and ability to solve problems. But a person who retires with a spouse may later live alone. Adult children may live far away, have limited time, or face pressures of their own. Someone without nearby relatives may need to build a different support structure. None automatically creates a crisis, but each changes what flexibility looks like. So we plan for longevity as a number. We ask whether the portfolio can last until 90, estimate inflation, and calculate withdrawals? Those questions matter. But longevity is not only more years, it is more transitions. And transitions create costs that do not always appear clearly in a retirement calculator. Consider housing. A paid-off home can reduce expenses, provide emotional stability, and hold significant value. But it can be both an asset and a responsibility. Repairs, stairs, yard work, cleaning, taxes, insurance, and transportation can all become harder to manage. For a couple, some responsibilities may be divided until one person can no longer handle their part. For someone living alone, every task may already depend on one person's energy, judgment, and mobility. And after the death of a spouse, a home that once worked for two may suddenly feel different. The house is the same, but the labor, paperwork, transportation, and decisions are now concentrated in one person. The problem is not owning a home. It is assuming that a home that works at 68 will automatically work at 88. A house can be worth a great deal while still limiting your choices. Its value may be hard to access, its location may require driving, and its layout may make daily life harder. Its emotional importance may also make moving feel like a personal loss. This is where psychology begins to shape the plan. We experience money not as numbers alone, but as identity, safety, control, and independence. For someone used to self-reliance, hiring help can feel uncomfortable, moving can feel like giving up, and using savings for support can feel like failing to protect the future. So people delay. They delay adapting the home, researching transportation, discussing care preferences, identifying who could help with decisions, or considering a move. And often, the longer a decision is delayed, the less voluntary it becomes. A change made at 75 can be thoughtful and gradual. The same change at 85 may happen under pressure. When decisions must be made quickly, there is less time to compare options, less room to negotiate, and more emotional stress. A spouse, friend, relative, professional, or community organization may step in, but they may not know what the person truly wanted. For someone without a nearby support network, even identifying who can help may become part of the emergency. A planned move becomes urgent. Gradual support becomes expensive and difficult to coordinate. The invisible cost is not only money, it is the loss of choice. There is another paradox. Many retirees are so afraid of spending too much early that they become rigid with money. That fear makes sense. No one wants to reach old age with no money. So they preserve the portfolio, delay improvements, avoid help, and treat every withdrawal as a threat. But sometimes, money that is protected too aggressively cannot protect the life it was meant to support. A handrail installed early may preserve independence. Occasional household help may prevent exhaustion. Reliable transportation may help someone stay connected. Moving closer to services or trusted people while the decision is still optional may reduce future stress. For someone living alone, developing a relationship with a trusted professional may also create a layer of support that does not depend on family being nearby. Using some money to make life easier is not the opposite of responsible planning. In many cases, it is the purpose of the plan. A retirement portfolio is not only supposed to survive, it is supposed to serve. And that leads to a distinction that becomes more important with age. Wealth is not the same as flexibility. You can have a valuable home and little accessible cash, investments with no clear use plan, or low expenses in a place that requires constant driving. You can have people who care but cannot provide regular support. And you can have no nearby family and still have a strong plan, as long as support and decision-making are not left to chance. Flexibility means having room to respond. It may mean keeping resources liquid, understanding housing alternatives, knowing who could help, and simplifying responsibilities while you still have the energy to choose. It may also mean spending a little more now to reduce the chance of a more expensive crisis later. None of this requires predicting the exact future. You do not need to know how long you will live or assume you will need full-time care. You only need to accept one reality. Your life may change, and your financial plan should be able to change with it. A useful way to begin is to ask what might be called the after 80 question. If your energy, mobility, household, or independence changed, which part of your current financial life would become difficult first? Not eventually. First, would it be the house, transportation, bills, appointments, low-cost routines, or making a decision without someone nearby who understands your preferences? This question reveals where your plan may depend more on current abilities or relationships than on actual resources. For some, the answer will be housing. The home is affordable only because they maintain it themselves or share the work. For others, it will be transportation. Their community works only as long as they can drive. For others, it will be informal support. They assume someone will help, but no one has discussed what that help involves, or whether it will be available. And for some, it will be liquidity. Accessing significant assets would require selling, borrowing, or making decisions under stress. The purpose is not to create fear. It is to identify the first weak point while there is still time to strengthen it. Then choose one gradual, reversible step. You might research housing without planning to move. Learn about transportation, discuss preferences without assigning responsibilities others cannot accept, identify professional or community support, or review how much wealth is accessible without disruption. Planning does not always mean deciding. Sometimes it means making sure a future decision will not begin from zero. This is the deeper purpose of planning for life after 80. It is not obsession with decline. It is protection of dignity. Dignity often comes from having choices. The choice to stay because the home still works, or move because you planned early enough to choose where. The choice to pay for help without feeling that every dollar is a failure. The choice to rely on family when they are available, or create other support when they are not. The choice to remain connected whether you share your home or live alone. A good retirement plan should not only ask, "Will my money last?" It should also ask, "Will my life still work?" Because the real danger is not simply living longer than your money. It is living longer than the original design of your plan. The version of you at 85 may value proximity more than space, ease more than ownership, reliable support more than the appearance of complete independence, simplicity more than tradition. And planning for that person does not take freedom away from you today. It gives you more ways to protect freedom later. You do not have to know exactly who you will become or who will be beside you. You only have to leave room for that person to have options. That is what a complete retirement plan does. It does not protect only the day you stop working. It protects your ability to keep adapting long after that day has passed. If this changed the way you think about the later years of retirement, write, "I'm planning for flexibility," in the comments. And subscribe to Invisible Money Habits for more thoughtful conversations about the financial decisions that quietly shape our freedom. You'll find a few additional resources in the description if you'd like to go a little deeper.